Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the PH Journals podcast. This week's episode, I'm sitting here and we've just finished recording the final couple of bits for the up and coming common reedbuck hunt that we've just had this past weekend. Before we get into this week's episode, a massive shout out once again to GY6. They this week's episode sponsor. I haven't had the opportunity, to be honest with you. I used them a little bit on this past weekend's hunt, but I just used my MagSafe on the back of my phone for a couple of frontal shots and stuff. Reason why I didn't utilize them as much as what I would have liked to is my new DigiOsmo 6 Action 6 hasn't arrived yet. Now I've ordered this freaking camera from 4 different suppliers, but anyway, that's besides the point. So big shout out to GY6. If you guys haven't yet, go along and check their website. They do some amazing things. The cap attachments on the side of the head is a freaking game changer, as well as one of the connections. I'm actually using it on my bow. My bow's still packed away from this weekend, so I can't actually show you guys, but I've actually used it on my bow to get a frontal shot with my iPhone. But I have seen it also can operate on my Bino harness as like almost like a chest camera, or what's those things called? Yeah, it is a chest cam, whatever the American policemen use when they're out in their body cam. That's it. So I had so much fun. We've got so much to dissect in this week's episode of the podcast. So thank you so much for tuning in. Let's get into it. So guys, like mentioned, this past weekend was absolutely fun-filled weekend with my family. A great bit of time to get away and really just relax. We went up into the Midlands. Just before we got to the Midland area, we finished off with a couple of clients out in the Natal region. We hunted Suni and red darker, and then we were hoping, we still got this croc permit that we have to fill out. Unfortunately, we weren't lucky on the croc. Nothing came in, nothing touched the bait. We had a zebra leg out there for a couple of days, but absolutely nothing had touched it. Wild part of South Africa is more the Shishluwi side. That's up there, Richards Bay, past Richards Bay, just before Pongolo, that area of the eastern coastline. So the more tropical regions, very dense forestry areas that we are hunting in. We shot an amazing red darker. We saw a bunch of them. There are so many of them out there. I even pulled out the bow on one. Didn't get lucky. I didn't get close enough. And the dense thickets over there just makes bow hunting just that much more exciting. It's freaking tight out there. But anyway, usually successful hunts as far as clients are concerned. Unfortunately, we didn't capitalize on a Suni. However, we will get a couple more opportunities with that in the next couple of years. Those permits are so hard to come by, but we've got a great connection up top there, so we'll be utilizing him once again. So, like mentioned, this week's episode of the podcast is jam-packed. We are touching on professional hunting's trust out in the industry. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is because most recently, I was contacted by an individual that was hunting here in the Eastern Cape. He reached out to me. He said, hey Dylan, listen, there's a couple of things I just want to find out. This is what's going on in camp. This is how my professional hunter handled a couple of things. I am okay with what happened, but in the same breath, I'm just a little bit unsure how to handle it, whether it is something that is taken upon as a professional hunter. Is this something you guys consider when you are out in the field and all this sort of stuff? Anyway, to boil it down, pretty much what had happened is these guys hunted a beautiful kudu bull. I saw the photos, absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, this particular gentleman asked to be anonymous. I did ask him if I could utilize this story as this week's episode of the podcast, because it's an interesting one. And being a professional hunter for the past 15 years, I'm fully aware of some of the scenarios that come into light. I've done so much episodes about a professional hunter and what you can expect and building relationships and all these sort of things. But when you are out in the bush and emotions overtake yourselves, it's very difficult to see things from a different perspective and trying to trust your professional hunter as best as possible. So what am I talking about? So what happened is these guys came up onto a beautiful kudu bull in the thick Committee's drift area. I hope this doesn't give the outfitter or the client away, but in the thick Committee's drift area, I've hunted there personally. I know what it's all about. There's some magnificent kudu in there if you hunt it really, really hard. Otherwise, the genetics that side are just not as big horn length wise as what some of the others you might get just down the road from in the Grahamstown region and all that. But anyway, cut a long story short, these guys hunted a magnificent kudu. The client did admit that based his education on South African hunting and also hunting abroad, hunting elk specifically, bear in mind this was his first safari, he anticipated the anatomy of the kudu bulls to be pretty much similar to what an elk would be. Now, this is a common error a lot of hunters especially from the United States, and more so also European guys with the red stag and all that sort of stuff. The anatomy of a kudu is slightly different to that of an elk. Our gearboxes sit a lot more forward in the chest cavity than what a lot of the deer species do out in North America. So just keep that in mind. So the shot was placed a little bit back. Still a great shot apparently according to the professional hunter, but the kudu set sail. Now the kudu it's rutting season, so the kudu was also surrounded by a couple of females, and those females after the shot were pulling the bull with them on every step, and every time they would get into range again, he would try and load up his rifle and put another shot in, and this happened twice, and unfortunately he missed on both occasions. Eventually, after two valleys, from what I understand, going through two valleys, on the third valley, they had spotted the bull again, and this time he had stepped away from all the females that left him behind, and he presented himself with another shot. Now, this was quite a distance shot. He guesstimated to be about 380 to 400 yards, and yet again, kudu fever. Unfortunately, he pulled the shot, and he shot underneath the kudu bull. And his words were to me, and let me actually get my phone on so I can read it correctly. 380 to 400 yards. Unfortunately, the shot went completely under. And before I could chamber another round, my professional hunter decided to take it upon himself to finish the bull off. At the time, I didn't have a problem with it, but with a stream of emotions coming through me, unfortunately, I started looking at this as a negative step from the professional hunter. Am I wrong or am I right? Excuse me. I don't hold anything against the PH to this day. I think it was the right decision at the time, because who would have known if that bull had gone over the third ridge where he would have landed up. So that's basically in a nutshell. Now, this isn't the first question I've had about professional hunting etiquette, and I've decided to base this episode on these particular scenarios. So, I've learned over the years that trust is a very difficult trait, or a very difficult attribute to immediately be taken in by the hunter. And for every reason, right? You're coming over, especially on a first timer such as this individual, you're coming over to a foreign country. You are going to be spending a lot of money that you have worked extremely hard for, to be guided by predominantly a young individual who's a stranger, who you don't know anything about, it's a freaking daunting task. Yes, of course, a lot of professional hunters nowadays get to have the opportunity to go with their outfitter over to America, and a lot of them meet their clients that way. And I've said it time and time again on this podcast, is reaching out to your professional hunter to try and build some sort of relationship before you arrive is so important to having a very successful hunt, because part of that communication going forward is all about trust. Now, not many professional hunters have these opportunities, and especially in the first couple of hours that you meet an individual, it's very hard to gain his trust straight off the bat. Now, what happens, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and not, again, I've learned valuable lessons this year with podcasting. Don't paint the industry with the same brush. I'm not doing that. I'm talking my personal experiences. Is you can gauge as a PH quite a bit from the first 2 hours of interactions in the cab, in the bakkie. How I've read through this is how the individual opens up to you immediately. So asking those hard questions. That's why in a couple of episodes, I always said, ask hard questions, ask a personal question. And if the client opens up to you, you immediately know that you guys have formed some sort of bond, because you've gotten personal very quickly. Unfortunately, I feel that that's a very important part of building a relationship, is understanding where the personal connection comes from. Sometimes you guys can hit it off straight away, and sometimes it takes a couple of days to get into the groove of things. So in your truck, if your professional hunter asks you a hard question or a personal question, answer him back and answer him honestly, because a lot of the time we can sense when there's bullshit being spoken, or when there's something very heartful and meaningful that has been opened up, and that allows endless amounts of emotion to go through those conversations, and you guys can build that trust going forward. And the next big tell sign factor is at the actual range. So a PH develops a lot of trust in your hunting ability. Once he sees you on the range, he sees how confident you know your way around a rifle, how well you know a rifle, and obviously, of course, how well you can shoot. A lot of professional hunters just shoot a couple of shots through there, clean the barrel, and walk away, so that the customer or the client doesn't build up too much target pressure. Now, what do I mean by target pressure? Some people, I'm a great example of that, and I'll admit it. I'm not a great target shooter. I really am not. I don't do well with targets with a rifle. So don't put me on a target and ask me to shoot 6 or 7 rounds through there and expect me to give you a grouping this big. I'm great when I'm out in the bush. I'm very confident with my shooting ability when I'm out in the bush. But on a target, I don't know why. I don't know what it is. I think I just overthink things too much when I'm sitting in front of a target. So a lot of the time, I'm included. If a hunter comes out, put 1 or 2 shots into the target. If the grouping is great, pretty much the size of a saucer pan, I'm pretty much confident that that hunter knows his way around the rifle, knows his shooting ability, because you'll stretch it out. And even if you've got a gong at 200 or 300 yards, let him have a swing at the gong. If he misses, not the end of the world. But yeah, that's just me. I like to have a more relaxed atmosphere around the target region, because like I said, I think after jet lag, long flights, long travel to the property, all these sort of things, there's so many different factors that you actually don't get a full story to be told once he's on the range. But it is a part of it where you can start building up trust. So what I have learned in professional hunter etiquette is the professional hunter will show you a lot of respect according to himself. There's a couple of things that there are do's and don'ts. Like, for instance, a big one, and it was asked to me the other day, and every man to his own, right? There's been professional hunters in the industry that have been in the industry for a very, very long time. They feel comfortable about smoking in front of a client. I don't think it's professional. During my outfitting business, I don't allow any of my professional hunters, whether it be their personal bakkie or my bakkie, to smoke inside the vehicle, especially when the client's around, or especially if you've got a couple of observers on the back. I think it's extremely unprofessional, and I don't think it's the right way to handle things. However, that's just my view. A lot of people don't have an issue with it. A lot of people don't mind professional hunters smoking inside their vehicle, and a lot of professional hunters don't mind the hunter smoking inside his vehicle. I don't allow it. I know a couple of other guys don't allow it, but that's just part of the etiquette. With understanding those boundary lines on where the lines get drawn, and you have to be, unfortunately, as a professional hunter now, you have to be forceful, or you have to be forthcoming with where those boundary lines are. Because if you don't set those boundary lines nice and early, or if a client has crossed a line that you never set, it's very difficult to go back and say to him, listen, Bob, I didn't quite appreciate that. Maybe if we could handle it a bit differently or something like that. It's very difficult to backtrack on what has been allowed in the past. So make sure that you guys come out as professional hunters, you come out and understand where the boundary lines are. And as a client, understand that these lines are going to be drawn in the sand. Respect them because you are in his territory. Respect them so that that trust can continue to be built. Now, with that being said, I don't like saying too many controversial things. I've gotten to a point on this podcast where I feel, because I do a lot of solo episodes, I feel I get misrepresented out in the industry quite a lot, because I don't maybe tell the side of the story as best as possible. But however, with that being said, there are a number of professional hunters out there that tend to be extremely, or have extremely harsh personalities. Nothing against them personally, but they have harsh personalities that tend to clash with quite a few individuals. And they may come across pushy, they may come across forceful, they may come across rude, obnoxious, and arrogant. And that's a trait you don't really want to have, because it's not good for advertising for an outfitter. It's not good for clients to build a relationship with, because a lot of people get disconnected there. So where am I going with all these wonderful personality things and the smoking and all this sort of stuff? Where is this all boiling down to? As hunters, you guys need to understand that a professional hunter has a list of duties to do out in the bush. And you, as a hunter, it's a very difficult position to be in. And after chatting to so many different clients, especially the clients that have just been now, it's extremely difficult for them to start relaxing and understand that, wait, hang on, my professional hunter's got this. And you can sense that. You can sense that for a very, very long time, because you know when your client's uncomfortable with a couple of things, or if you've made a bad call, or if you've crossed the line that he had drawn but you needed to because you were a professional hunter. These scenarios happen all the time. So getting back to the point of that kudu, for that professional hunter to step in and understand that it was his responsibility, it was a lost animal or a recovered animal. That is an extremely important tribute. We've seen it all. We've seen it time and time again on YouTube episodes, with social media now. We see it that the professional hunter on a buffalo hunt steps in, bang, 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 shoots this buffalo 5 yards at the bottom of your feet. And yeah, it's happened more so now than ever before. But we've seen all these action shots. And trust me, the professional hunters aren't going out there to purposely do that, to purposely do it for the gram, or to purposely do it for a TikTok viral sensation, or whatever the case may be. They are just doing their job. And whether you like it or not, that is the responsibility of a professional hunter. Professional hunters in South Africa and Africa alike are some of the most talented hunters you would ever come across. And I mean that. And I'm not just saying that to blow smoke up my fellow professional hunters' asses. I'm not. I'm being truly honest with you, because time and time again, I mean, we have been put into situations where the outcome might not be always be favorable for the hunter, but at the end of the day, the professional hunter understands his duty, and it's the difference. It's a split-second decision between life or death on dangerous game, or retrieving or losing a kudu bull. And that is the difference, because that's what it boils down to. And that is where the trust needs to be overcome. Or not overcome, that's not right. But that is where the trust needs to be at its strongest. Because you need to trust that if as a hunter, you've made a bad shot. Or not a bad shot, but you made a shot that is not going to be as effective as what you would have liked it to be. And after 2 ridges or 2 valleys that you have chased this bull through and missing twice, and then on the third time your PH stepping in, he's given you ample amounts of opportunity to get back onto this bull and finish him off. Now, I'm the kind of professional hunter that doesn't like stepping in. I don't like stepping in. I don't like finishing off my clients' animals. But I'm fully aware of my responsibility as a professional hunter, that is just part and parcel of the game that we so love doing, or the industry we are a part of. Because that is all part of making sure that you represent this industry the best you possibly can, so that there's not 1,000 or 2,000 freaking wounded animals walking around out there. Because that's a harsh reality we're facing, is wounded species. And as professional hunters, we have got to make those calls on numerous amounts of occasions. And as a hunter, you have to trust your PH that he's made the best call. Am I saying that professional hunters get it right all the time? Possibly not. Possibly a good 70% of the time the professional hunters make the correct call. And the other 30 is just misjudged, miscalculated, but never intentional. Well, I mustn't say never, but mostly never intentional to take the kill or the shot away from you as a hunter. The professional hunter, when he steps in, is purely based on his knowledge and professionalism out in the bush. And we have to appreciate that as hunters and acknowledge it and understand that it was never going to be malicious, or he never did it to spite anyone of robbing them of an opportunity. So that's where the fine balance starts coming in. Those are where the questions all start getting asked is, shit, did I step in at the right time? Should have I stepped in? My client seems a little bit pissed off about it now as we get back to the lodge. What do I say to him? And be open and honest. Break it down. Listen, this is why I took the decision. This kudu was going to get away. You could see it. You had shot under him on the third time. Let's just come to a common ground here that this was never going to be my intention to take this away from you. But understand that this is an important part of my job to make sure that we retrieve that bull as quickly as we possibly can. Because if we had lost him, I promise you now, the feelings you would be going through now are 1,000 times worse. We've all experienced it. We've all experienced wounded animals at some point in our career as a professional hunter and as a hunter. You'll be naive to think, if you haven't yet, congratulations, but you'll be naive to think that you'll go through your whole career as a hunter without experiencing what it's like to have a wounded animal out there. It's gut-wrenching. It's terrible. It's one of the worst feelings you can ever have. It's sleepless nights. It's what if, what could have been, why didn't I do this? It's 1,000 questions all at once. And I think we need to understand that this is where the important duty of that professional hunter comes in. And like I said, use him as a tool, because that is what he's there for. Another big one that was asked to me is that, and this was asked to me years ago, so I'm going way back in the archives, but it fits in perfectly with the theme. How do we know that these guys are doing their best possible to put us in the best possible scenarios or situations? And this story stemmed from back in the day where a an individual. It was on the hunting ranch that we were on. He had gone 6 or 7 days without seeing a single bushback, not a single freaking bushback. And they had traveled kilometers, miles and miles and miles across the Eastern Cape, trying to find bushback. Now, I don't know where this particular PH took him to, but every single time back at camp, so one of our base camps was out in Fort Beaufort, and I would often be, well, we were hunting the group together, so we try to stick together as much as we possibly can. And every evening, come in, they would be pissed off, there would be boots flying around, sulking at the dinner table because nothing. They saw absolutely nothing. Or they saw a couple of females or a small ram, whatever it may be, but nothing shootable. And the hunter didn't come to me, but he came to a fellow senior PH at the time in camp, and he said to me, he said, listen, how do I know this Oakie's putting us in the right possible areas? And as professional hunters, we kind of look to ourselves and be like, well, I mean, he's been a PH for more than 6 years. I'm sure he's built up enough contacts to get the best possible scenario or best possible opportunity on a bushback. And it just boiled down to the fact that it was very, very difficult to get a good representable ram at that time in those areas. And not anyone's fault, but the questions started coming because we all had our bushback. We had all shot our bushback, good representation. We actually, the other senior professional hunter, had actually shot 2 great rams with a husband and a wife. And I remember the story vividly because it was one that molded my career in a way, because I realized that the professional hunter was over-promising but under-delivering, because every morning there would be this sense of optimism. You would get into camp or get into the lodge, make yourself a cup of coffee. You know what, Bob, today's the day. You know, I've got that feeling inside my bones, and the optimism is driving through. Yeah, we're going to this property. We haven't hunted off this property for the last 6 years, and wada. And building this magnificent story up, because when you are successful and you've got all this hope, then it's like this big explosion at camp that night, right? And a lot of PHs do that, but harping this whole scenario out and then getting back that evening with absolutely nothing and not even seeing a shootable ram, it's almost like a gut punch and a bit of like a deflation in the balloon. But at the end of the day, you've got to understand that you created this air bubble, and now it's building, and it's going to pop. And when it pops, questions get asked. So as hunters, and I love talking like from both ends of the spectrum, because I can talk from my personal experiences, because again, I'm not painting the industry with the same brush, please don't get me wrong, but these are just personal experiences I've had and my personal opinion on how those situations unfolded. And what you need to be is like, listen, Bob, we're going to keep trying our best, but these are the situations. We've tried how many properties. Unfortunately, this is just part of hunting. This is how the Eastern Cape unfolds. And my next hunt in the next week, I could possibly go out there and see 4 shootable rams. But right now, our situation is as such. And I promise you now, you can trust me with everything you have. I'm going to give us the best possible opportunity, or what I predict is going to be the best possible opportunity to get a good bushback ram. And that's the most important thing that you can come across to your hunter. By blowing situations up, by harping the situation, even though it's had a couple of difficult days, you build the story up. Yes, and sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, it's very, very hard to come back from that. And trust gets lost. And it's important to try and hold on to that trust as much as possible. Because at the end of the day, that's where the respect comes from. The relaxation, and everything else starts falling into place according to plan. So understand, as a professional hunter, be very optimistic. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, try and control your emotions as much as you possibly can. I think that's a very, very important tool to have, is to try and control emotions throughout the hunt. And on that point, getting into missed and wounded animals, that is where your most important trait of personality is needed. Because if you are a professional hunter and you get overly emotional about a couple of things, going in after a wounded animal or getting back to camp after a client has missed a big kudu bull or something like that, it's very important to channel those emotions you have and not take them out where it's visible for everyone to see. Take some time for yourself, go back to your cabin or wherever you are and relax and let everything just kind of drain through your body. Have a shower, chat to the outfitter, say, listen, I need a 15-minute break. Go chat to the wife, the kids, girlfriend, whatever it may be, and just deflate from that situation. Because the more you get emotional about things, the less trust the hunter starts having on you. And the reason for that is because if you're going to carry on getting emotional about things, it's going to add pressure to the hunter. So when he does get that big kudu bull back into his crosshairs, the chances of him being successful are very slim because of the added pressure to it. And buck fever is a real thing, whether you like it or not. And adding pressure to that is always something that's very difficult to overcome. So keep that in mind. What's next? Let's have a look here. Trophy care. Yeah, that was an important one. Time and time again. Look, I do say this. I say this. This is very important. As much as it's the professional hunter's responsibility to make sure that the hunter is well taken care of from the morning he arrives there to the day he leaves, everything from hospitality, hunting, skinning, everything. I also think the hunter has a huge sense of responsibility to make sure just to check up on your pH and your tracker. Not in a sense that you need to go and look over his shoulder at every freaking decision he's making, but in a sense that just make sure that you're keeping tabs, that everything is just running smoothly. Because if you walk up to the skinning shed and there's no tags on your trophy, you can at least say to him, I say, listen, John, what the muru is going on here? Why is none of my trophies tagged? And if he's got a bullshit excuse about it, that's where the trust gets lost. But if he's got a valid reason behind it, well, then you can start building up relationships and start having conversations about why he made those decisions, so that it puts you at a peace of mind and that you have a better understanding when going forward and talking, well, when you see that in the future, and just understand, okay, well, shit, he doesn't have tags on the skins because, we've got to wash the salt off after so many days, put a new layer of salt on, and then he's going to re-tag them. So that's maybe the reason why. So having that comfortable understanding about what is actually going on in and around camp is very, very important. Again, I'm not saying you have to go out there and freaking watch every freaking decision he's making, but just understand that just checking up here and there and trying to understand for your better judgment is also very, very important. And I think it's a responsibility a lot of hunters need to take on. So the common misconception about professional hunting is, what is actually a professional hunter? He's not just there to guide you onto an animal. He's there as your guest or as your host. He's there to make sure that you are safe, that your environment's safe, that you are guided onto your animal, that your animal's trophies are well taken care of, and that he looks after you as best as he possibly can while you are in the country. Yes, a lot of the responsibility also falls on the outfitter, but understand that your professional hunter is the one that is going to be with you almost 24/7. I hope not 24/7, because that means he's cuddling with you at night, and that's not a good thing. Yeah, guys. So, just in closing, again, I can't speak on behalf of the whole industry, but what I have seen is that I get it. I get why clients would be upset about a professional hunter finishing off his trophy, especially when it comes to the more expensive stuff, sable, buffalo, that sort of stuff. I get it. I really do. But at the end of the day, I understand that it's just part and parcel of who we are and what we have been taught to do. As professional hunters, I like to think that because there are so many quality hunters out there in the industry, that this is all part and parcel of them having the best possible understanding of animal behavior out there. I mean, being in the industry for some time now, you can see from a mile away how everything is going to unfold. You really can. And there have been moments in my career where I've looked back and been like, shit, I should have stepped in, I should have ended it, then we wouldn't be sitting here with a wounded animal tonight. But there are also times where I'm like, that animal was going to die, maybe I shouldn't have pulled the trigger. It's very few, but maybe I should have just given it to John to let him finish it off. But understanding that you made the best possible decision for what you anticipated at the time is something you have to trust your gut on, trust your instinct, and trust your ability and your understanding as a PH. I think a lot of us PHs don't trust our inability quite enough. And I think it's very, very important to understand that that's what we need to trust ourselves a lot more. And yeah, I mean, it's great. I was at camp with two fellow PHs now in Natal from another company, and watching those youngsters navigate themselves around that thick, dense Natal bush was awe-inspiring. I mean, one was 26, the other one was 24. So that's 9 and 12 years younger than me, and I was learning from them. As much as they were learning a couple of things from me, I was learning from them, because those sort of situations, I haven't hunted many, many times in them. Yes, we've hunted species up there, but that's their bread and butter. Come down to the Eastern Cape, I'll show you my bread and butter. But as PHs, I think that's what we need to lean into more and stop this. Competition's good, but I think a very bad habit that's formed over the professional hunting industry at the moment, and I could be wrong, and I could be misperceiving this whole thing, but there's competition between one another where we can't share this and we can't share that, and hold yourself, take a photo this way, and all that sort of stuff. I think some of it's healthy, but some of it's also detrimental to building relationships with fellow PHs across the industry, and I think that's more important than worrying about status. So yeah, that's just my thought. If you are a hunter and you're listening to this podcast and you're a client, you're wanting to come out for your first time, trust your PH. I promise you now, they're one of the best hunters you'll ever come across, and appreciate that. Appreciate those moments that you share, and watch him, understand him, and I promise you now, it's having more trust on your professional hunter just makes your safari that much more enjoyable. I promise you, and that I can speak from experience, and I've seen it firsthand. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it. So this week's episode was all about trust. Trust your PH. Promise you, won't have a bad one. All right. Well, guys, I'm heading off. I'm kudu hunting this weekend. We dropped a bunch of oranges, not for kudu, but because we are having an absolute freaking nightmare with baboons on our trail cameras and in our pop-up blinds and all that sort of stuff. So as well as what the season prep went, and baboon can freaking undo it in a couple of minutes. So I'm heading out hopefully to ambush a beautiful kudu bull, but if not, hopefully we'll be shooting a couple of primates that are decimating our blinds and stuff. But yeah, I'm super excited about that one. Once again, guys, from me personally, I just want to say thank you to everyone that supported me on this incredible journey. It's been so much fun, and I'm looking forward to so many more wonderful, wonderful adventures. If you don't mind, I would really appreciate it on any one of the platforms you are listening to this podcast to subscribe, drop a thumbs up, interact with it, because the algorithm helps me grow. And the more I can grow, the more of this I can start doing. So from my side, I just want to say thank you to those that have supported me and that have driven the podcast forward. I'm so grateful for each and every single one of you. But as always, if you are, happy hunting. Until then, stay safe, stay blessed, stay humble. We'll catch up with you guys soon.